Yep. All right. Cool. Yeah, you guys are going to make it as difficult as possible on me this morning, aren't you, with your separation? I'm actually teaching you guys out there, apparently. So listen up. So, all right. So we got our dad joke of the day. My boss asked me why I only get sick on work days. Why I only get sick on work days? Must be my weekend immune system. That was a good one, Aiden. You got to admit it's play on words. Weekend immune system. Um, and then I put a little comic up there. I just invented the darn thing yesterday, and this morning Watson calls in sick. Right? Anybody understand that reference? Who's Watson? All right. Anyway. All right. So today we're going to talk about self-centeredness. Is it really all about me? What does it mean to be self-centered? What does it mean to be self-centered? Yes, Aiden. You don't have to raise your hand in here, man. We're not that formal. You revolve around yourself. Okay. What else? What does self-centered mean? Yeah, you may be a son. Yeah, you're not the son. S-U-N. Yeah, exactly. Okay. To be what again? Preoccupied with oneself and one's affairs. What does it mean to be preoccupied? What does it mean to be preoccupied? Is this the first time you've ever heard the word self-centered? Engrossed in thought, distracted. Preoccupied, okay. So then add that to the. So now we're okay, Molly. We're going to pull this thread down, sweetheart. So put that all together in your definition of self-centeredness and the definition of preoccupied to make sure we understand what's happening. Put it all together. You decided to go the wiki route, so let's hear it all together. What does it mean to be self-centered in light of what does preoccupied means? Yeah, engrossed in thought about who? Yourself. Me. It's all about me. It's like the old joke. It's like, oh, I'm sorry I keep talking about myself. Let me give you an opportunity for you to talk about me too. Right? What's the problem? What are the issues? What are some issues? What are some issues? At least the first one popped up if you were quick to see it. What are some issues with being self-centered? And I'm not thinking in our walk biblically. I'm just saying generally in the world. Has anybody ever met someone who was self-centered? Yes. What was the characteristics of that person? We're not going to get past slide 1 if you guys aren't interactive. What were some of the characteristics of that self-centered person? How did they behave? What did they do? How did they talk? They talked about themselves, right? Were they worried about other people and what other people wanted? They generally were just about, it's just you and me, I guess, Aiden. It's all about like me, right? It's why aren't you talking about me, right? Even our actions and our activities are all about what I want to do, how I want to do it, right? Never thinking of other person, never thinking of the other person's way. Can you think of some other words or adjectives that are like being self-centered? Can you think of any other words? Selfish. Okay. Good. What else? Egocentric. Big psychological word there. There you go. There you go. Yep. Could be egotistical, right? It's all about me and how great I am. And why aren't you talking about how great I am, right? So what are some issues with that person being self-centered or you being self-centered? What are some issues that you might run into in this world being self-centered? Hard to make friends. Not everybody wants to talk about you, right? What else? Actually, you know what? There was another, I'll have to use it next week. There's another dad joke that would have been perfect for this. I didn't even think about it. Yeah, no. I'll forget it. So it's okay. Anyway, what are some issues with? Well, so Aiden hit the first one. It affects relationships. Hard to make relationships, isn't it? He didn't look at my notes. I swear, I hit him before we got it. Again, we maintain a focus on ourselves versus others. right? So we're always about me, 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 right? It can also consume and destroy because I'm only focused about me. So let's say you do have a friend or you're able to make a friend, someone you don't realize till later that's very self-centered. How is that relationship going? What do you think that's a long-term relationship, you and this person, or do you think that's something that's probably going to deteriorate over time? Who gets tired of someone talking just about themselves? Right, right. Roy knows. Welcome, Roy. All right, so exactly. We're talking about self-centeredness. We're talking about. Do you have any insights about self-centeredness, Roy? Anything? Any words of wisdom for us? What does it be? What is it like to be around somebody who's self-centered? Why not? They can, yeah. In a lot of ways, people are self-centered by, in essence, pushing you down to make them seem taller, right? Yep. In a public setting, yep. They try to be, they try to be the center of attention, right? Have you met anybody who wants to be the center of attention all the time? It's exhausting in that person. What? What did you just say out loud? No, no, yeah, yeah. It's exhausting, especially being around that person because you're like, okay. That's not self-centered. That's poor kid can't sleep. All right. So we're gonna. So as an example, anybody ever heard of this book, Yertle the Turtle? We read it. You've heard of Yertle the Turtle? Yeah, my mom. We read all those books when I was a kid. Dr. Seuss. I love Dr. Seuss. I know he probably isn't politically correct anymore, but I used to read Dr. Seuss when I was a kid. So, does anybody know the story of Yertle the Turtle? Yep. So tell me a little bit about Yertle, other than he has a really bad name. He was a very self-centered turtle. Gee, imagine that, a lesson on self-centeredness, and I brought up Yertle the Turtle. That was a good context clues there, Katie. Excellent. So for those of you who've never heard of Yertle the Turtle, I'll give you a quick synopsis of the story. The story revolves around a turtle named Yertle the Turtle, the king of the pond. He's unsatisfied with the stone that serves as his throne. He commands the other turtles to stack themselves and so that he can sit on top of them, so they can be beneath him, so that he can see further and expand his kingdom. So he's basically, the idea is everything I can see is I'm the kingdom of everything I can see. I'm the king of everything I can see. However, the stacked turtles are in pain, and Mac, the turtle at the very bottom of the pile, is suffering the most. Mac asks Yertle for a respite, but Yertle tells him to be quiet. Then Yertle decides to expand his kingdom and commands more and more turtles to add his throne. Mac makes a second request for respite, relief, give me a break, right? But Yertle just tells him to be quiet because of the increased weight. Now it's causing extreme pain to the turtles at the bottom of the pile. Again, Yertle yells at Mac to be quiet. Then Yertle notices the moon rising above him as night approaches. Furious that something dares to be higher than Yertle the king, he decides to call for even more turtles in an attempt to rise above it. However, before he can give the command, Mac decides he has had enough. He burps, which takes away Yertle's throne and tosses the king off the turtle stack into the mud, leaving him the king of the mud and freeing the other turtles. Sounds familiar to Satan, right? Trying to put his throne above God. And so we have this. The idea of self-centeredness is you could care less about what other people are going through and issues in other people's lives. It's only how it affects you. It's also narcissism is another. In love with yourself is a big term that we use for self-centeredness, right? And so the question we have for ourselves this morning as we kind of walk through this is, am I self-centered or am I God-centered? Right? Is it all about me or is it all about him? Right? And the idea is we grow into these truths. Today it might be 70-30. 99-1, right? Depending on where we are in the maturity of our walk. As a young baby believer, in a lot of ways, even though we love the Lord, it still may be about me and my walk and how I do, and your prayers may represent that. It's all prayers about me, help me, make me better, right? And as you mature, those things may change, right? So I'm using this as an example, not saying that you're either purely self-centered or you're God-centered, right? There's a spectrum as you mature. As we grow closer to being it about God, as we mature in our walk, Does that make sense? So if you're not perfect today, it's okay, right? We're not going to be perfect this side of heaven, but we're working toward those things. Let's take a look at Matthew 6:24. You got it? Does everybody have their Bible ready to go? Because we got a lot of scripture to read today to talk about this. Matthew 6:24. Aiden, when you get it, read it. I got a Bible here if anybody needs a hard copy. I know everybody's got a phone, but Matthew 6:24. You cannot serve God and wealth, right? In some of the versions it says mammon, mean wealth, right? So it's saying I'm either all about me or I'm all about God, right? So you can't serve two masters. Sam uses an example that I always enjoy. You can't have one foot on the train and one foot on the platform and hope not, and expect nothing to change when the train starts to move. You're going to be on one or the other. You're going to be in a lot of pain, right? So the questions we ask ourselves sometimes, right? Why do I do the things I do? Why do I do the things that I do? And I don't mean that in a philosophical sense, like why am I here? What's the meaning of life? That stuff. I mean, in my activities and what I do in my life, am I doing it to serve myself and bring honor to me? Like, look how great I am by doing this thing. I remember many years ago, maybe early times of YouTubers and people making money on YouTube. They would go out and like film themselves giving food to the poor, right? And be like, oh, look how great I am! I'm giving food to these people who are hungry. Calm down, It's like they're bringing attention to themselves versus trusting that God sees our activities, right, and blesses us through where it's in our heart, right? So is it about me serving myself, showing how great I am, or like the Son, or is it about bringing honor and serving God and bringing honor to Him, being reflected light? What do you think? Gee, we're at Hope of Israel on a Saturday morning. I think I know the answer to this one, but what do you think? Which do you think we should be striving for? The God one, yeah, good answer. Your dad's sitting right there. You better get that one right. But the idea being, right, that and when we evaluate our actions, we want to make sure we look at, and again, Jeremiah's like, our heart is wicked, who could understand it, right? But the idea of, am I doing this thing out of pride to bring honor to myself, or am I truly trying to do this to bring honor to God, right? And again, we see the difference between self-centeredness, 100% focused on ourselves and our glory and honor, versus God-centered, 100% focused on God and His glory and honor. What's the level of commitment for these? 100%. So the level of commitment isn't different, right? We also talk about love and lust, right? The idea of love and lust, we sometimes mix those terms up in this world. Lust, in its very simplest form, is 100% committed to myself and my desires. Love is 100% commitment to your better being, your well-being, and your desires, right? Agape, benevolence, that's what benevolence is. The level of commitment for being self-centered or God-centered are exactly the same. It's about the focus, right? Not about the commitment. We can be committed. Talks in Romans how they're committed, right? But they're not full truth. Speaking of Israel, they don't know the whole truth. They don't know the complete truth about it. But they're still committed to God. They're just doing it without full truth. So self-advancing, others advancing. Let's take a look at Philippians 2, verses 3 and 4. Philippians 2, verses 3 and 4. Who can get that one for me that isn't named Aiden? Philippians 2, verses 3 and 4. You got it, Roy? Thank you. Go for it. So who are we looking at? Who are you looking out for, right? Who are we looking out for in our day-to-day activities, our actions, our attitudes, right? Who are we looking out for? Are we looking out for ourselves? Are we looking out for others? Are we, again, these are things that we need to contemplate when we think about actions, when we evaluate our day-to-day actions and attitudes. Would you limit your success in order to help someone else succeed? So for many years, I was a manager in my current where I work, right? And I shouldn't say a manager necessarily, right? I was a leader. I tried to lead my team, not just manage them. And manage people is really operational. Are you doing activity A? Are you doing something? That's more of an operational job title. You're making sure things get done. A leader is somebody who's trying to advance their team, trying to help them. So they take responsibility for failures and they recognize and spread the recognition, right? The idea is, would I have limited my career in light of someone else's advancement? Have I done that, right? Are you doing that? Can you do that? Would I limit success in order to help someone else succeed? I think about, I just happened to see football yesterday, and I was thinking about last year, the end of the season was pretty much over, and one quarterback was supposed to play, and he said, you know what? I think it'd be better if this quarterback played instead of me. He's been doing real well in practice. I think he needs an opportunity. And he had a really good game and he played well. That's the kind of thing we're talking about. Now, again, it could be selfish ambition. He's trying to pretend like he's, better than he is or whatever. That's not the point. The action is would I be willing to subdue myself in order to promote someone else? Would I take a back seat in order to promote someone else? There's some thoughts and ideas. Some of these are pretty adult ideas and grown up, but you can all handle it. You're smart kids. Smart youths, right? But these are all questions we should be asking ourselves as we go through our day-to-day activities, as we proclaim Messiah as our Lord and Savior, right? All these things sort of come into play here in light of our walk and our practical testimony. It's not about all the time what we say. Like Roy, he was immersed a few weeks ago, right? And he had to come up with a testimony, right? How did I come to faith? There was the three main parts. What was I like? When, how did I know the Lord and come to faith, and what am I doing now, right? That's a verbal testimony, right? But then there's also a practical witness, your attitude and your actions, what people see you doing versus what you say you're going to do. These things here are internal in a lot of ways, being self-centered. You express them externally, but again, it's where the heart is. Am I doing this with the right heart? Or am I doing this because I'm told I have to? When my kids were little, right? One would do something to the other, and I would say, apologize to your brother, apologize to your sister. I'm sorry. They weren't doing it because they had any kind of heart to say they're sorry. They were doing it because I told them they had to do it. Anybody had that experience? Right? You were told to do something, so you did it, but there was no heart in it. Right? That's where these things, we express these through our actions, whether I'm selfish or selfless. All right, so 3 cures. We're going to roll through here. 3 cures for self-centeredness. Number 1, give God your heart. Romans 12:1. Roy, get to Romans 12:1. Number 2, give God your humility. Katie, James, Jacob, 4, 6, and 10. And give God your hands. Aiden, Matthew 20, verses 26 to 28. All right, so give God your heart. Roy, read Romans 12:1 for us. I did give you 12:1, right? Okay, yeah. No, okay. It's okay. Romans 12:1. Here. I got it right here. 12:1.
Therefore, I urge you, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies a living and holy sacrifice acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service of worship.
How often should we do that?
Thanks.
Thank you. How often should we do that? Let me read it again. Not that Roy didn't do a fantastic job. Therefore, I urge you, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living and holy sacrifice acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service of worship. When should we do that? How often should we do that? Is it like a Shabbat thing, like I'm doing that today, like I sacrificed sleeping in today? 24/7. It's every day, right? It's every day. We should wake up every day with that attitude. Lord, use me today, right? Use me as an instrument in your hand, giving all the glory to him. What does that mean? We seek him for our goals, desires, and ask him for his plan. So when I drive into work every morning, I try to, doesn't always work, I try to pray on my way to work every day for two reasons. One, because the drivers in Charlotte are crazy, but also, I don't know what's in front of me. I don't know what the Lord has planned for me in that day. And if I haven't aligned myself or tried to align myself in my heart to what his plan is and trusting him, I'm going to walk into a mess, spiritually or even physically sometimes. I'm going to walk into something. So we seek his goals. We seek him for how we're going to do what our actions are. Can anybody, and I know it says it up here, what do we recite every week that centers us in our worship and everything toward him as we get into these things? The Shema, right? The Shema. That is a vow. That is a command that we're to hear, O Israel, Lord our God, Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and might. That is a command, right? We're reciting it every week. So we're saying almost like an amen. We're going to do that. You've committed. Every time you say those verses and you recite that, if you really feel it, you are actually committing that to the Lord in that day. You're going to love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your might. Those aren't easy words. You have to be prepared for those things, but you're committed. You may not know that, but now you do. Boom. We seek him with our heart. Again, Shema, desire to know him and to love him more. Do you yield your heart daily to him, right? Do you start your day off in prayer? You don't need to answer me out loud, but think about this. Like a lot of this is going to be meditation. You're going to have to meditate on this a bit this week. Do you start your day in the right heart? Have you had one of those days, leading question, leading the witness, where I didn't start that way and the day went horrible? I was in a bad mood. Things didn't work the way they should. Whatever else happens. Has anybody had one of those days where you didn't start off with the right heart and it only got worse? Right? We want to be careful of those things. Take time out, carve time out. We talk about in discipleship class, for those of you who've been discipled, gone through the book, pray every day. Pray 5 minutes a day. Pray. Just every opportunity, pray when you can, so that you can get your heart right and aligned with God. It's important. It's important to do that. All things should begin and end in prayer. Nicholas starts the worship set with Lucy praying. He ends the worship set with him praying. We start Hope of Israel with prayer during worship. We end it with prayer before we release the kids. Sam starts it when he starts his lesson, finishes with prayer at the end of the lesson. Things are girded or surrounded, tied up in prayer so that the Lord may be blessed through it. Give God your humility. James 4, 6, and 10.
But he gives a greater grace. Therefore it says, God is opposed to the proud, gives grace to the humble. Humble yourselves in the presence of the Lord, he will exalt you.
Humble yourself in the presence of the Lord, and he will exalt you. So it's about being humble or proud. Pride, I think, personally, this is Gary's opinion. Take it with a grain of salt, as the cliche goes. Pride is the worst of all the sins because it leaks into every little nuance of our lives, or at least my life. Everything I do that I find detestable, I can usually trace it back to some pride in my life. Example, again, terrible Charlotte drivers. I'm driving them on my way to work. Someone cuts me off. I get enraged, frustrated that the person in front of me is going too slow, or going too fast, or driving crazy, or they don't know where they're going, right? You have your blinker on to go right, but then you keep going straight. What is your problem? Know where you're going. We have GPSs now, right? Right? Anybody had those experiences? That's all pride. That's all pride. I'm frustrated because this person doesn't see how important I am and where I'm going and how important it is. That's pride. That's self-centeredness. Just in that one moment of what seems like an innocuous interaction that nobody hears but me. Not true. The Lord hears, right? So we want to be careful of those things, right? Pride is in everything. How dare that person talk to me that way? Well, what makes you so special that someone shouldn't talk to you like that? Right? It's all pride, being frustrated. Are you a glory? What does that mean? What do you think that means? What does it mean to be a glory thief? Yes. Look how great I am. I'm just such a great guy. I did all these things. I want to be in the front of the picture because I'm the greatest of all these things, right? Instead of getting, we went and helped at the Crisis Pregnancy Center, in Queen City, and that was awesome time, right? But we take a picture and put it on Facebook. Look how great the youth program is at HOI. We take the time out of our Shabbat to go and stack boxes for this very worthy cause. Don't name the cause, don't name the people. Look how great we are. That's a glory thief. We don't do these things. We don't serve for self-service purposes. We serve to bring honor to God, right? Or at least we hope that's the way we do it, right? I got all this stuff. I'm going, politicians. I love election season. Politicians, oh my gosh, I'm going to go to church. 1 week of the year, of the 4 years that I'm in office or whatever. Get all the cameras so they can see me visiting veterans in the hospital, right? That's what it means to be a glory thief, right? The idea, and again, our expectation as believers is different than the world. The world's just acting like the world. We as believers should be acting differently. That shouldn't be who we are. But it happens. It's maturity. We mature into these things. We're not perfect. We're not going to beat ourselves up over that. Focus glory back on God, not on ourselves. Do you have a good view of who you are and who God is? It takes time to have a good view of ourselves and of God. Allow the growth to happen. So we grow into these things. I've been saved for, as of the end of August, it will be 22 years. Some ways I'm more mature than I was day one. Some ways I still fall prey to the nonsense of 22 years ago, being a baby believer, right? So we all grow at different paces. And again, we grow into the truth. The truth doesn't change. Our application of the truth over time changes. Maybe I let that one car go by and I don't go ballistic because they're in my way. That's maturity. Because it used to be every car got my wrath in some way or another, right? Every driver. All right. Give God your hands. Matthew 20, verses 26 through 28.
It is not this way among you, but whoever wants to become prominent among you shall be your servant, and whoever desires to be first among you shall be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many.
Exactly. So serve others instead of yourselves. Selflessness. 100% committed to the other person versus selfishness. 100% committed to myself. How do you feel when you help others? How does it feel when you help somebody else do something? Does it make you feel good? What if they don't thank you for it? How does that make you feel? Still feel good about it. Yeah, good. Yeah. It's not about their response, right? And again, back to that conversation about, apologizing when you're told to versus when you want to. Right? If you apologize with your whole heart and the person's like, I don't accept that. There's nothing you can do about that either. That's their hard heart. In the same way, if you do something nice for someone and they don't appreciate it, the Lord hears, right? When we act in a certain way, the Lord sees us and knows that we're treated unfairly and sees it, and we're blessed by it. We don't need to get the glory of man every time we do something. Thank you, right? We don't need all that. When you focus on others, you are taking your eyes off yourself, seeing others' needs, getting a clearer perspective on life, and getting true fulfillment, right? The idea, that when you meet people, you may have a bad interaction with them, it may have nothing to do with you. You don't know what that person's going through in that point in their life. So to be offended or upset by it and not allowing, again, that person didn't thank you for the time you spent doing whatever you did, right, for them. Well, there may be something going on in their lives that you're not aware of, then maybe you pray for them. But again, it doesn't change the fact that you've done something nice for someone and you have a different perspective of things. I would like us to do more service opportunities in the youth class because I think we learn to be the hands of Messiah, right? his helpers by serving, right? And we don't have to go to some country to do it. We don't have to have a mission trip to wherever else, right? We can do things here. People need our help here. People need our help in this community. People need our help that belong to this congregation, right? And so we want to be able to help them and commit to helping them because it's the right thing to do and because it's Messiah led, because we are here to serve, not to be served. Those that are first, the idea bottom serving, and as we have the more people, you serve more. As you're on the bottom of the realm, you're serving more people. The closer you are to the bottom, the more people you're serving. Is what I was trying to say that wasn't coming out properly. So let's have some questions to ponder. Are you pondering what I'm pondering? I don't know. Let's look at the questions. See if we ponder, right? Why is the world so self-centered and focused? Why is the world so self-centered and self-focused, focused on themselves? Why is it so hard to focus on others instead of only ourselves? Why is it sometimes hard? That affects me. I'm hurt. It's my, that person hurt me, right? Being focused on these things. Can you think of someone who is others focused? Can you think of at least exhibits some external behavior that show that they're maybe focused on other people versus themselves? They're more focused on others. What do they look like? What makes them that way? What's their attitude? What's their actions? What things do they do? Why is the biggest roadblock? What is your biggest roadblock, if I could read, to being others-centered? What is keeping us from being more about you than me? Me sacrificing self for your betterment. It's keeping me from being able to do that. What can we as a youth do to become more others-centered? What can we be doing? I mean, you guys, you use guys. Putting and doing here at Hope of Israel to become more others-centered. Now we want to be careful because we did that. We were in a pretty precarious situation with helping another person, and it became a little dicey. Yeah, what? Not every service opportunity is good for teenagers. We helped out a hoarder, and it. I think I got sick for the next week, and what? It was a cat mausoleum. It was awful. Yeah. Yeah. Not every service opportunity is a good service opportunity for us. That's up to me and Nicholas and Anna and Lucy and Garrett. Think about that. Think about how you would like to see Hope of Israel youth serving to show that we are others focused versus, because we're all starting to grow. We're all trying to grow. We're all trying to be better. Service helps us to grow. Being others oriented helps us to grow. All right. That's all I